It just means the game is not keeping up with where we really are right now, and they may never do so. The more I play this game, the less excited I am, the less I want to play MLB The Show 25. Let's talk why Pro Speed 24-25 does franchise significantly better than MLB The Show ever has. You are listening or watching the Franchise Ain't Dead podcast dedicated to all things franchise from various games across the sports landscape. Franchise has been a part of the game since 2006. The initial iteration being when you took players of a very low overall and just tried to build the team up to win the World Series. Since 07, that has completely changed. You just get the normal rosters in which are the base. And then you take a team, win a World Series, keep going through infinite amount of years and just build your success from there on. One of the great features that both Professional Baseball Spirits and MLB The Show both share, you can continue a franchise on until eternity, until your system breaks. Unlike games like Madden or NBA 2K or even a college football 25, you only have but so many years, most of those being 30, with NBA 2K being 80 years, which probably is enough for most people. In fact, in MLB The Show 20, I still have a save file that I've transferred over to my PS5 that I occasionally sim through, which is in like 2075. It's a Rockies franchise that I GM moded of sorts, where I'm simming. I might play a handful of games here and there, but nothing too crazy. And I've had the Rockies win 3 World Series. Had a couple of MVPs, including a guy that was 35 years old and on the decline. Unfortunately, I still have yet to get the Rockies a Cy Young winner. It is truly difficult to get a Rockies pitcher as a Cy Young Award winner. Shout out to Ubaldo Jimenez, who came real close about 20 years ago. A lot of the similarities almost kind of end there. With both games, you have a long season. You can't change the number of the games, unfortunately. MLB The Show at 162 and Professional Baseball Spirits at 143. In both, you can play with legends. So long as you put them on the roster beforehand or allow them to be free agents of some sort, you're good to go. You can rock out with any of the players you really want to, including a souped up, and I mean soup up, Shohei Ohtani. If you thought he was difficult to deal with in MLB The Show, I can tell you he is 100 times worse in Professional Baseball Spirits. One of the gameplay things I've noticed since playing this game for over a month is the fact that pitchers can have greater than 5 pitches. I've definitely run against a couple of pitchers who have 12 pitches in their arsenal, so it makes sitting on anything damn near impossible. The pitches are split, as pitchers can have primary pitches and they go in any number of 6 general directions: straight, glove side, throwing arm side. In other words, more horizontally in those directions, and those that kind of do a bit of vertical and horizontal break at the same time. So think pitches like a circle change, a screwball, a slurve, a sweeping curve, and pitches that just straight drop. Your split finger fastballs, your fork balls, your change ups, and it makes for a really interesting pitching experience. If you've seen any of the streams that I've run, by all means, please check them out. Obviously, if you're listening to this, the links will always be down in the show notes or in the description. With both games, before you start, you can change the DH rule. NPB continues to have it where one league is DH and one league is not, the Pacific League being the DH league and the Central League being like the old National League, where they did not have a DH unless during interleague, both teams, the home team's rules are followed in the Japan series, the equivalent of the World Series. Professional Baseball Spirits does have it a bit different as far as minor league play is concerned. They are considered the farm team or the second team, which unfortunately is unplayable, whereas MLB The Show, you can play Major League, you can play AAA, you can play AA, but unfortunately for the last 19, and I'm going to assume for the 20th year in a row, you will not be able to play A-ball, which is a shame, because there are definitely players that I have drafted. They've been like 50 overall, 30 overall, like really low rated players that I've wanted to play with and see how terrible they truly are. I know they'll never make the MLB, but I mean, sure, I can throw them in the AA, but A-ball, which in real life is more so rookie league ball, at least nowadays in the last couple years, as they've gotten rid of the high and low A distinction. A-ball is kind of you just playing intra-league squad games against your other teammates. To greater differentiate players from one another. Both games have come up with their own individual systems, how they categorize them, and how they work. In Professional Baseball Spirits, that is called special abilities. It's in MLB the Show, they are quirks. The show, there are a limited amount of quirks that a player can come into the league with, and in previous years you used to be able to obtain different quirks depending on what your season statistical totals might have been, such as bomber. Used to be, if you hit, I think, around 20 to 25 home runs in a season, you were considered a bomber, a guy who excels at hitting home runs. Or if you had a specific attribute threshold that you've hit, such as players that are over 85 speed. Somehow, for some reason, I haven't yet to see any players with that in 24. I don't know if they got rid of some of them. It's a little weird. Whereas in Professional Baseball Spirits, for every player in the game, and I mean every single one of them, whether you're a pitcher, whether you're a hitter, there are 6 base special abilities, and they all correspond to different parts of a player's game. Your hit trajectory, in other words, how you might normally hit a pitch. There are a number of those which play into said players' hitting strategy or approach at the plate. Some guys are going to hit high, lofty fly balls, and others are going to be more ground ball hitters, which it makes for a greater variety of players which you can have on your team. Now, a lot of players kind of fall somewhere in the middle. Injury frequency, which allows you to tell how likely it might be that a player could get injured in the field of play, whether they're fatigued or whether they're not even fatigued. You could have a fully healthy player in one game, next game, or in that same game, he gets hurt and he's out for a significant amount of time. Bunting is just a singular attribute on a grade scale of S through G, which all the players in the game, all of the attributes fall somewhere in that spectrum. Unlike the show, there is hitting with runners in scoring position, which is now the same as clutch or batting clutch is in MLB the Show. Before MLB the Show, it was very vague as to how clutch worked, whether it was something that only worked in the 9th inning, whether it was runners in scoring position. Now it's more tied to runners in scoring position as opposed to the 8th or 9th inning, or even extras for that matter. And then base running is its own separate special ability in this game as opposed to steal ability. In MLB the Show, there's speed, and then there's base running aggressiveness, which doesn't exactly play well as far as players taking the extra base. I can put a guy's base running aggressiveness at 99, and I just don't feel like they run the base paths any harder or try to hustle and go, leg out a double into a triple. Some players in Professional Baseball Spirits, they may be fast, they may be a B, A, or an S tier speed player, but they might not be willing to take that extra base. Whereas if they have high steal ability, they'll steal a bag. They won't exactly, again, exert themselves more to take a double into a triple or even a single and hustle it to a double. Additional abilities in Professional Baseball Spirits relate more to player aptitude or what the player is taught, as opposed to the show, where players just come into the league as they are and there's not anything more to show for. There are players in Professional Baseball Spirits who will throw very hard, and there's a special ability for that. But from what I've noticed in a franchise that I've been playing for the past several months, I know I haven't put it on the channel, essentially fantasy drafted players off of a roster that was nothing but players 100 years in the future. I am in year number 3, and I come to realize that as I look through all of the players, there are a lot of quirks that just don't show up. Outlier continues to be one that just is, you can obtain higher velocity on pitches, and it's very, very strange. Yes, you can do it in the edit screen, and yes, a pitcher can have 99 velocity on a 4-seamer, and their velo will go down, but it'll still show that the fastball is 99. It's a very weird thing in this show. I don't understand it, because as players get older, they don't really lose velocity, which is not really normal. A lot of pitchers usually lose a touch off their fastball. They lose a touch off of everything, to be honest with you, just because Father Time, Mother Nature, is undefeated. That takes me into quite possibly my biggest gripe with the show. Since about MLB the Show 12, maybe 11, before I was long doing content creation, I was pretty much convinced that training does nothing. Now, it is extremely difficult to pull off attempting to prove that because there are a lot of factors at play, and without some kind of control in a lot of aspects, it just isn't exactly possible to pull off. It's been pretty much the same. Really, all of them are kind of just grouped. If you're going to work on contact, you're working against righties and lefties. If you're going to work on power, it is against both righties and lefties. You're going to work on clutch vision discipline all together, not individually. And I understand how a lot of these overlap on one another, because you've got to have the vision and the discipline in order to hit in the clutch. I get that. But from what I've seen, from the limited amount of time I've played, time I've coached, and really mostly from talking to some of my other friends who have played the sport, you can work on individual aspects of a player's game. Velocity is a multifactorial thing that doesn't just involve your arm. It involves your lower body. It involves your core, being able to transfer said power from your legs to your core through into your arm and out to the ball itself. That also plays into hitting a baseball with power. It's not just doing 1,000 squats and deadlifting and all that stuff. Like, it's also technique, which I don't expect like any baseball game to really, hell, I don't expect any sports game to get that nuance. Though I like nuance, I can understand how sometimes nuance can come across as this is too much shit to do. Fair. But I've never liked MLB the Show's training. And it's just simply because you can't work on individual aspects of a player's game. If I want to hopefully get a pitcher's fastball velocity up, and I want to specifically work on that, you can't do it. You can put a player in training, but it'll never ever tell you how well that is going. It'll never tell you whether that player is making progress or regressing. You never know. Or if a player gets hurt doing so. I've discussed this in a previous episode of the podcast where I think I went into full detail on how training just doesn't make sense. In professional baseball spirits, it is a hell of a lot different. I think a lot of the things that the franchise community has been asking for, and I've looked on Operation Sports. I've been on there for about a decade. I've seen it on Reddit in the past couple years. I've seen it in YouTube wish lists. You can work on individual aspects of a player's game. Your coaches do matter because they can influence how much greater of an impact that their teaching can take a player. I've griped about some draftees who have come into the league or even just the minors. Their pitch mix is not what I'm looking for. They'll throw 2 fastballs and a changeup. Sure, this might work. This might work for them. They might be perfectly fine for the rest of their careers. But I can't directly teach them how to throw a breaking ball, a slider, a slurve, a curveball, any of them, a knuckleball for all I care, a splitter. Can't even teach them another fastball, at least not in a way that my pitching coach, who I've signed for thousands, if not millions of dollars, to come in and help said pitchers. Maybe you look at a player's attributes and kind of realize, I don't like that this guy has a pull approach at the plate. I don't like the fact that they have a opposite field approach at the plate, given their attributes, because, well, this righty batter who hits for power against lefties way more so than righties is a pull hitter. Of course, some of this also plays into the fact that some special abilities in professional baseball spirits, this player just might have more success if you were able to teach them with the hitting coach to hit differently. Maybe you might want to just be a opposite field hitter. In other words, if I'm standing in this stance, for those of you who have signed some players in free agency or even called up a minor league player and an injury happens and you're looking around at your roster and you're just like, oh boy, I need to figure out a way to, let's replace the third baseman. You only have one on roster. Everybody else or some other players on your bench, they might have a catcher, secondary, and play first. They may have an outfield secondary, as most outfielders have the other outfield positions as their secondary. Your second baseman only plays second base. you're kind of screwed because you can't teach a player how to play another position. Now, on the edit screen, I do have a major gripe in the fact that these secondary positions are locked in terms of maybe second, third, and outfield, play first and third. If I want to have a player uniquely play second base, catcher, and left field for whatever reason, I want to be able to do that and not have to change their primary position to make their secondary position work, or change their secondary position to make the primary position work to really fit that in there, because some of this is just not possible. I've asked for years for this to be a checklist. At the very worst, if we can't just get positional teaching from one of our coaches, just makes sense. Professional baseball spirits, you can teach a player to play a whole nother position, including a position player to become a pitcher. You never know. You might be absolutely run down as far as pitching is concerned. You can teach a player to get a stronger arm to throw. You can teach a guy to get faster. It just doesn't make any sense that MLB the Show continues to not give us that bit of nuance to make our team the way we want it. It's a shame. Both teams, when it comes to player acquisition, there's not a whole lot to it. There's the draft. Both have drafts. Both have free agency. Though NPB free agency, players tend to be a lot more loyal to the team in which they got drafted. It is not too often that players get signed with another team, though they definitely can and will get traded. And unlike MLB the Show, there is international free agency. Consider foreign players who come over from other respective leagues. I'm going to assume including MLB, though I don't believe you will see any real MLB players in this game, though Konami does have the MLB license. I don't know the exact parameters of it. It very well could be, hell, they might have the rights to all MLB PA players. You never know. But nonetheless, you can specifically search for players that have played overseas. Professional baseball spirits, there can be a limit to how many of these players can be on your first team, but not a organizational limit, as that hasn't been the case in a couple of years. MLB the Show, I've done an international team, a rebuild franchise, drafting, both scouting and the format itself. I'm going to start with MLB the Show because I'm very sure to 99.9% of you, this is something you are absolutely familiar with. Currently in scouting, every scout gets to scout one player. That's 3 as it currently stands. It used to be 4, where you could have a East, a West, a Central, and an international as a whole, which is a hell of a lot of countries to have one dude to be sifting through. It's crazy. That is a lot of freaking flying miles, though. But anyway, and those scouts can search by starting pitcher, relief pitcher, closing pitcher, and all individual positions. I have a major issue with that. You can discover more players, though its current iteration, I am not sure if they even bother to find any new players. There's no indication or notification that shows me, hey, such and such scout has found this player that is deep in the slums of the Dominican Republic. No, we don't get that. We do not get that. They are basically discovering players, high school players, which are typically the 18-year-old players, college players. I actually like the fact that there are JUCO players, some players that just didn't make the grade, may not have been that good, just didn't get offered a scholarship, which obviously is something we don't get to see, but you know that they're a JUCO player and they're trying to declare for the draft. They can declare at 19 or 20 or even 21 years old. And of course, there are the 4-year players that are now in it that are 21 and 22, the rare 23-year-old now, whereas before there were draftees that were up to 25 and 26 years old, which makes no sense. Professional baseball spirits, you're pretty much, I want to say you're limited to one player at a time, like literally one player, as there are 2 scouts. Your domestic, which are scouting players from all of Japan, high schools, and overseas, all of overseas, China, Korea, Australia, South America, North America, wherever they might be able to find players. Unlike the show, pitchers are not immediately designated for you as starter, reliever, closer. That is up to you to make that distinction. And players do have different directions they might lean. Some might lean better as more of a starter, better as a reliever, or even better as a closer, but you can, again, teach them to be better at different aspects of the game. You can have a pitcher that is perfectly fine, maybe not perfect in general, as a starter, as a reliever, reliever, as a closer. You just throw them out there when you need them. You can search generally by infielders or outfielders, or at least primarily infielders and outfielders. Players do play infield and outfield. I've definitely found a couple players. They can play the corner outfield. They can play first. That's fine by me. Shoot, I don't mind it. Outfield, a player can play the outfield and have shortstop as another position that they can play. They have some aptitude to play, and again, it is all graded. If a player just can't play another position, they don't even show it. You can discover players from high school, from college, and independent leagues, which is cool. I've yet to get through Season 1, Chibalote Marines Season Mode franchise. I'd love to find an independent league player. Might not have been drafted and decided to go to an independent league to work on their game, and then boom, maybe they help our team make it to the postseason. There are notifications. They will tell you when a player has become available, scouted. You can take a look at them. And when they're 100% scouted, as opposed to the current iteration in MLB the Show, where if they're 100% and you left them there, you might be leaving them there to up their interest, but you know that they're 100% scouted, though the parameters of their potential and overall are still a mystery until you've drafted and signed them. Which brings me to the draft format. MLB, you pretty much know what it is. If you somehow are new to this game, which is fine, ain't nothing wrong with that. All teams that don't make the postseason have scaling odds based on their record, with the worst 3 teams getting equal odds for top 3 picks. Sandwiched between the first and second round are the following: your prospect promotion incentive picks, which are given to teams that have had a player win the Rookie of the Year. The team gains an extra first round pick, hence why the most recent draft in 2024, there are technically 39 first round picks, as the 2 teams that had Rookies of the Year, they got their pick first, and then following that would be compensatory picks, which are given to teams whose players reject the qualifying offer, which the qualifying offer is taking the top 125 salaries, the average of that, and that is what it is every single year. If that player who rejects the qualifying offer signs elsewhere, you get draft pick compensation. That's why a team like the Yankees didn't even bother offering Gleyber Torres the qualifying offer, which I believe was somewhere around $18 million. I personally, as a Yankee fan, thought they should have did it, because while you might not want to bring him back, and $18 million might be around what he made last year, sure, he might sign it, but he also would probably go sign somewhere else if he realizes, hey, y'all not going to do right by me by securing me for multiple years, despite, I believe he's about 27 years old. So he's a young enough player. He can get himself a medium or even a long-term contract with another team. I do have a massive gripe about the compensatory picks in MLB the Show, because this is a very nuanced thing that I noticed. MLB the Show has yet to change how compensatory picks are given. They are still running off the rules of the previous CBA, the one that was signed, I believe, from 2016 through 2020, the one that basically got us the stoppage in 2021, where basically the offseason didn't start till March. The previous rules were as follow: you get a compensatory round A pick if a player signs a total contract that is equal to or greater than $50 million. Round B would be after the second round if a contract was signed that was less than $50 million in total. The current rules are a little bit more complex, but I don't think they're too complex that they shouldn't be in the game. Though, if from what we've been told through the rumor mill that franchise is essentially extremely old code that probably needs to be torn down and rebuilt from the ground up, it might have been, if not hard, probably impossible to put in the current rules, which takes me to my next gripe. The draft is the only way to acquire international players, and I can understand why it is the case if we jump way back to 2006. During CBA negotiations, owners wanted to implement a international player draft, but it never went through. And I don't think anybody has heard anything about it, except during the times in which, we got CBA negotiations, and you might hear a snippet about it here and there. In the most recent CBA negotiation, kind of delayed the idea of it for a year after said CBA contract was signed, so there could have been an international draft in 2022. It didn't get the proper amount of votes needed, so it's never come into consideration. Before the CBA expires, which is we're about 2 years away from, best believe this is going to be back on the table, which probably means one of two things. One, MLB The Show has been ahead of the game by about 20 years. Also, it means they haven't even remotely tried to put an international free agency, which sucks. I've mentioned this in previous podcasts. The last 4-5 5 MLB the Show cover individuals have been from another country. They were born in another country. Javier Baez did play here in the U.S. and technically Puerto Rico doesn't count, but it does. I think they should be the 51st state, but that's not what we're talking about here. And I'm just not expecting to see international free agency in MLB the Show 25. It just means the game is not keeping up with where we really are right now, and they may never do so. As for the NPB draft, actually, I'm not going to explain it. I'm going to have somebody else do so.
In Japan, the professional baseball draft, where amateur players are selected to join the NPB, is one of the biggest sporting events of the year, receiving nationwide coverage. Because most high-end talent in the draft are able to compete at the top level almost immediately, or after just 1 or 2 years of seasoning on the minor league reserves team, the NPB draft has far more of an immediate impact than the Major League Baseball draft, where even top draftees will not see time in the big leagues for several years after being selected. Any Japanese player is eligible for the draft. This includes high school graduates, college players, and independent leaguers. For longtime fans of the NPB, the draft is an annual tradition, with many game shows and YouTubers doing fantasy drafts and mock drafts throughout the year. But many new fans are often confused at the format of the draft because of how different it is from standard straight drafts in North American professional sports. Simply put, the NPB draft is a bidding system, similar to a lottery, but it isn't the typical lottery of, say, the NBA or NHL, where the lottery determines the order of the draft. Rather, the NPB draft involves all 12 franchises locking in their picks simultaneously. Each team's selection is then announced, but here's the catch. If 2 or more teams pick the same player, the representatives of those teams must then face off in a lottery, pulling cards from a box to determine which team gets the rights to that player. For the teams that lose the lottery, it's right back to the drawing board. On the other hand, if only one team selected a player, that team gets the rights to that player immediately. The process then repeats itself until every franchise has selected a player, and then the format turns into a snake draft from the second round forward, going in opposite order of the season standings, alternating between leagues. The league that won the season's interleague play gets to go first, so if the Pacific League won interleague play, that means its 6th place team would pick before the Central League's 6th place team. The bidding system creates a strategic war between picking the best player the team believes is on the board in hopes that either no other team selects him or that they win the lottery, or selecting a more under-the-radar guy for a better guarantee of getting that player. Statistically speaking, several teams will certainly miss out on their desired player and be reduced to the 10th, 11th, or 12th best players on the board. This sort of system might not work in the majors, but let's just imagine how it would look using the 2011 MLB draft class as an example, since it's widely considered to be one of the best in the past few decades. And let's take just the top 12 teams of that year's draft to cut the number down to the same size as NPB. Gerrit Cole was the consensus number 1 pick that year, so let's say the Pittsburgh Pirates select him, as they did, but that the Seattle Mariners, Kansas City Royals, and Milwaukee Brewers also bid on him. A lot of mock drafts had Anthony Rendon going in the top 3, but he fell to 6 on the board, so let's pretend that the Washington Nationals get lucky and end up being the only team that selects him. The Nationals immediately earn Rendon's negotiation rights. Now let's say the Arizona Diamondbacks and Baltimore Orioles both select Trevor Bauer, and the Cleveland Indians and San Diego Padres both select Francisco Lindor. Let's say the Chicago Cubs are the only team to pick Javier Baez, and the Houston Astros are the only team to pick George Springer. Luckily for them, they immediately earn the rights to their respective picks. But now there are 3 players, Cole, Bauer, and Lindor, that multiple teams are bidding on. Since 4 teams selected Cole, each team only has a 25% chance of actually getting him, while each team only has a 50% chance to get Bauer or Lindor. Now let's say that the Milwaukee Brewers win the lottery for Cole. A 12th ranked team just got the best player on the board. Let's say the Arizona Diamondbacks then get Bauer and the Cleveland Indians end up with Lindor, as in real life. Well, now the losing teams from the lottery, the Pittsburgh Pirates, Seattle Mariners, Kansas City Royals, Baltimore Orioles, and San Diego Padres, would all be left going back to the drawing board. From this, it would be very clear who the winners and losers on draft day are. Washington, Chicago, and Houston would be winners for successfully acquiring their picks uncontested. And Milwaukee would also be a winner for managing to steal the number one player in the draft class. Meanwhile, the teams that lost the lottery would not only have failed to get their top man, but they may not even be able to fall back on their second or third choices as they would in a standard draft. So is the MPB draft format better or worse than the MLB draft? It certainly adds an element of excitement to it, and it absolutely prevents teams from tanking for higher picks. At the same time, it doesn't promote much parity in the league, as the worst teams can continuously get unlucky and stay at the bottom of the pack for years on end.
Within the last probably 2 iterations of Madden NFL football, they have decided to update their trade screen where you can now trade 6 assets. No more than 3 players, no more than 3 picks. It at least makes the franchise experience a little bit more realistic, where picks are usually moved or picks are usually traded for players. Unfortunately, in Major League Baseball, you cannot trade draft picks except for a very, very specific time period, which I don't expect MLB the Show to ever put in the game. And unfortunately, in professional baseball spirits, there's also only 3 trade slots, but it comes with a caveat. You can move money in trades. So if you want to try to maybe even up the money that's moving from one team to another, you can choose to do so, or greater entice the team to take your trade by either giving them money or taking on money from another team. MLB the Show, it's been the same thing for 19 years. 3 trade slots on each team. Trades are instant. You know immediately whether a team is interested in it, whereas in professional baseball spirits, you are usually given a couple of days in order to really decipher whether a trade is right for you. I'm not exactly sure if teams will offer trades to you. I just yet to run into it at this point in time. Team revenue. Unfortunately, in both MLB the Show and professional baseball spirits, the financial situation is mysterious. Essentially, you win games, you'll make more money as more people will come to your games. Actually, come to find out, there are multiple factors that play into professional baseball spirits' financial system. Just in this mode alone, the acquisition of team funds is really based off of attendance and the team's funding level. There are 7 different ones. The funding levels are basically 1 through 7. You can end up with anywhere between a low amount, which is like 1 billion yen, all the way up to, if you're at level 7 and 100% attendance, 13 billion yen. So you'd have to be like just straight running through the entire league. If a manager has either level 1 or level 2 of fundraising, you get a income multiplier of 1.1 for level 1, 1.2 for level 2. There are certain games in the year that are going to affect how many people are at said game. Opening games are in March, which are early in the season. The opening games of interleague between the Central and Pacific leagues, which do matter, the postseason games, and games where the magic number just gets considerably lower and lower, so like 5 or less, especially the ones that are 1 game between 2 teams to win the league championship. They're highly popular, and those will end up as highly attended games at about 98%. If the attendance falls below 85, spectators will decrease to a almost noticeable level. If it is below 75, you will definitely see that. Also, team makeup. So if you've got some highly rated players, usually about 400 or better, people will want to go out and see players like that. Where other teams rank in the standings will also play an effect depending on the stadium that you happen to be in. There are 2 stadiums, a third would be your local stadium, that just have probably more capacity, or spectators just more likely to go to those games. So your local team, people from the local area will want to go to those games. And of course, players that are debuting. So if you've just called someone up from the second team up to first team, aka the minors to the majors, then you will definitely see a bit of a spike that way as well. MLB The Show has a distinction that you can gain more money through the sponsorship cards that you could find in Diamond Dynasty. You could find as a post-game reward. Also, you can buy from the show store. As far as custom teams and customization, MLB The Show currently has it where you cannot add more teams into Major League Baseball. You can replace a team in Major League Baseball. The creation suite it's fine. It doesn't come with any default logos. You have to find those in the vault yourself or create one of your own. I wish they just had it where you could just upload an image, but I know copyright might be an issue. Professional Baseball Spirits, though, I know you can create a bunch of custom teams, and things really start to differ for both games in a positive way, just slightly different. In Professional Baseball Spirits, unlike MLB The Show, you can't create your own stadium. Since MLB The Show 21, we've had a stadium creator, and honestly, it is very good. It could use a couple tweaks here and there to really liven up the stadium creator as far as making it feel like it is yours. Not that you can't do a great job. The bullpen being on the field. No professional baseball team should ever have a bullpen on the field. That is stupidly dangerous. I can understand in an older stadium, Oakland, they weren't going to renovate their stadium as they've currently moved to a minor league stadium, at least for the next couple of years before they probably move to Vegas. We don't know where they're going. Is it been confirmed? Because I don't think it'll be confirmed till they actually have the stadium construction being started. Tampa, which, let's be honest, they're not even going to be playing at that stadium, as I believe the lease is up in a couple of years. They definitely won't be playing in 25. They more than likely won't be playing in 26, and I believe their lease is up before 27 starts. So we can honestly probably start the process of them moving to another city. Let's be honest. Florida baseball just doesn't really seem to work for Tampa given where the stadium is. It's in a terrible place right off the highway in a condensed area where people have a hard time parking. Whatever, not my problem. In Professional Baseball Spirits, you can create said team, swipe players off of other teams, or if you have created a player in another mode, there are two different modes in which you can, in a sense, create a player, as there is no individual create a player. Sweet, it's strange to me, but I guess it's normalized here. You can take that player, add them to your team, and then edit them from there. Attributes, uniform options, similar like 2K. Players can wear certain things at certain times. You also can do something you can't do in MLB The Show. You can edit the coaches. That includes their abilities, but what they look like. You can't do that in MLB The Show. I don't know why. Some of these managers just look rather ridiculous. They look like, it's not out of the question for somebody my age, I'm 34, to be an MLB manager, but let's be honest, most of the dudes that are managing teams, they're older dudes. 50, 60, 70. Also can customize the stadium sounds. This is not the same as the unlockables in MLB The Show that I guess you can use. I don't like them. Some of them actually are what the teams have used. Honestly, we need to bring sounds of the show back. Professional Baseball Spirits has kind of done that. You can take a team's cheer song, take one from another team, or you can use one that you upload or create yourself. I want to reiterate, I like MLB The Show. Mainly the reason why I continue to play it is because, one, the gameplay is very good. The gameplay is good enough that I would be really hard-pressed not to continue playing it, as it just works. They've improved pitching, they've improved hitting, they've improved fielding, especially fielding. How balls are played off the wall, how balls bounce, though they kind of changed that up some. When the ball is rolling on the grass usually slows it down. It doesn't feel like it slows it down enough. It's almost like the ball is bouncing on a rug or on just a solid floor. I think they need to change up that kind of ball physics. The hitting engine in Professional Baseball Spirits just seems that much better. Different hits are likely as opposed to some of the can of corns you might see, which again, not are out of the question, as some of that depends on how a player swings and their usual batted ball trajectory. Will I get MLB The Show 25 if it doesn't have some kind of major improvements to the mode? Probably. I mean, it's been one of the main pieces of content for my channel for the last going on 5 years. So I'd almost be silly to kind of turn away from that. But I would tell you, if you get the opportunity to get Professional Baseball Spirits, do purchase it. It is worth the extra shipping. It is worth the price, I feel. And there's 3 different franchise modes in this game. Things that you can do to translate a lot of the text in the game so that you can enjoy it if you haven't already done so at this point. The link to the site is in the description, as well as the Discord, which actually you can find it on said site. You can find the Discord there and just join the community. I promise you, this will be one of the best franchise experiences you will ever have. There's 3 different franchise modes in this game.
You are, it seems, a man of many skills. A rare combination.